welcome everybody. It's good to see all your faces again. This month is the official first month where we begin, and it's already dark outside. So now the whole new part of the year, the time to look forward to when it gets as dark as it possibly can, and then we just start counting up again. Oh, look look, it's staying light out. It's so late. It's 4:35. Yesterday was 4:30. But the count up will start again soon. But luckily we've gotten this great reprieve with the weather, you know, as I often indicate, as long as it's warm out, I'm happy. So even if you hate it, I'm sorry, but I'm happy. I know some people are like crazy now with this humidity and the heat that we've been having. For me, it's like walking on sunshine. I didn't realize I was that powerful, but apparently I am. Sorry guys, sorry cold lovers. If you need to, move away from me.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding. All right, anyway. All right, so welcome. We're in the middle and coming toward the end of the series on exploring the soul. And when it was first suggested to me that we do this particular topic, there was no particular agenda of what we would be talking about each month. For those of you who have been here, we've done some hands-on things. We've done some really big topics as well. You've probably also encountered, I'm not a fan of the word, in this case, I'm not a fan of the word urgency, because it sounds negative, but I am having a sense of urgency in communicating more rapidly with people. And the reason I have that sense, and I can feel it by what I connect with, the thoughts and the ideas that I'm connecting with, I can feel a bit of a hastening to it. The reason that I'm feeling that, and I might be delivering things more rapidly now, is because we are well into our period of accelerated enlightenment. And you know, when you hear that something is increasing, we can think of a steady increase, and then you know that over a period of time it has increased a lot. But it's always hard to really think about, what does accelerated mean? Accelerated means that it's increasing at an increasing rate.
Speed up.
And there's a lot of effects that we're feeling about this. So if you have any doubt, I've been saying we're in a period of accelerated enlightenment, I think since about 2010. But if you have any doubt about it, think about how rapidly the world around you is changing since 2010. It's not that it hadn't changed the decade before, but the speed of change now is so rampant, it's almost hard to keep up with it, right? Mm-hmm. So just a little example of a way that you can see that is, back in the day, when something new came around, like the cinnamon challenge or whatever the thing was, it stuck around for a while. What was it? The water? What were we doing with water?
ALS challenge.
Oh, the water challenge. What did we do?
Ice water.
Oh, porta bucket. Okay, so let's go to the ALS challenge. When the ALS challenge appeared, you heard about it, and then it got bigger and bigger, and it gained momentum, and it went on for a month, and then there were the stragglers, and they did it 6 weeks later, right? Mm-hmm. But then when things happen now, you literally can feel like been there, done that in 4 hours, you know? Like, all right, we heard about the cinnamon challenge already. I've seen 2 videos. I've known 5 friends that have done it. I've gotten invitations to do it, but you're done with it in 4 hours. So something so new and so fresh is old in half a day. And that it doesn't mean that everything is that way, but things are so rapid right now that we're even processing our perception. I can't figure out what to do with this. I better get it out of my hands way, because it's going to become a thing all night. But that's just like, there are physical ways that we can become conscious and aware of this period of accelerated enlightenment. And I know doing a cinnamon challenge or a water challenge might not be, I'm not suggesting that those are enlightened things to do, but what I'm just showing you is like that enlightenment process, the rapidity of it, is showing itself in all arenas now, almost as though time itself is becoming accelerated. Another thing that I keep hearing lately is, for those of you who have attended the Year Before Us seminars that I give every year in January, I am not given any information about them until either a day or so before, and since Derek's not here tonight, but since Derek writes a song for us every year, a theme song for it, I usually get at least one piece of information a few weeks early, so he has a word for the theme, and then he can write his song. I can't keep giving it to him 3 days before, because that's a little rude. I'm like, well, can't you just create the melody now and work on the lyrics later? You got 24 hours. But that's not working for him. But I don't get a lot of advance notification. But this year, in September, I started to hear things that we're going to be talking about in the Year Before Us. And that's just odd, really, really odd. And again, I think it comes from that feeling of a little bit of urgency that we can't be as complacently meandering through the process of enlightenment as we used to, because we have to be able to step up to how fast things are changing around us. And in order to do that, you want to stay in the know. You want to know what the changes are, preferably in advance of them happening outside of us, so that you can be prepared to step up and go with it, to go with the changes rather than fight against them. Anytime you're fighting against a tide, you run out of energy. It consumes a lot of energy to go against something. So it's about letting go of the resistance by just being knowledgeable about what really is going on in the universe. And there is a lot more going on than I think anyone has ever seen, at least in our physical lifetimes. It's very, very noticeable. Many years ago, I would point out that the way to be aware of the process of accelerated enlightenment was to try to find a phone book or yellow pages from the 1990s and look up how many yoga studios were open, or how many meditation types of programs were available, how many spiritual centers were around, how many even massage therapy offices or places were around. So when you see what was there in the 90s in comparison to when you go outside, and you can virtually see these everywhere, anywhere you go, no matter where you are, then that helps you to have a visible representation of the changes that are occurring and how rapidly they're changing. But in addition to that, what you're seeing outside of you is a sense of a feeling that something is different. And part of it is how you react to the things that are going on outside of you. Because we always have experiences that we perceive as being challenging that can happen to us individually. And then there are those things that happen on the global picture, on the global arena. And I'm noticing that a lot of people are reacting differently to what's happening globally. And there's a good reason for it, because the purpose of the global challenges is to give lots of opportunities for people who are completely asleep to wake up. A challenge always has embedded in it an opportunity for discovery. So if a challenge happens to just me or just you, well, then we have the opportunity to grow from it and make our discoveries and let go of masks and layers and remember what we knew when we were born. But then who else? Maybe if I tell a couple of people, maybe they'll get the opportunity as well. But if something is happening that affects a lot of people in a region, then that gives a greater opportunity for a lot of people to reimagine the meaning of life, reimagine their experiences in life, reimagine what their purpose is, reimagine why these things happen, but to take pause and say, I have to really approach this differently, because otherwise it's just overwhelming. Even in all of the different tragedies that have happened, even within the last 6 months or a year, you can't possibly stay in a state of grief or fear at a heightened level that you might have been for one incident like this 10 years ago. You might have been able to stay in that depleted sense of an unfamiliar territory of feeling vulnerable or afraid or something. And now you might still experience things as we hear about them, but you can't stay in that state. So are you becoming less compassionate? Or is there a possibility that there's some level of you, on some level of consciousness, that is beginning to understand that the mass dialogue that the universe is having with us is trying to say something bigger and bolder than has been said in our lifetime before? And that's exactly what's happening, is that it's a conversation with the universe to ask those who are still choosing to remain completely asleep to wake up, wake up. And it's kind of interesting because everybody's thing that helps them to wake up will be unique to their circumstances and their life story. So it can't be the same circumstance to provide an opportunity for waking up for every person. And you're witnessing that on Earth right now too, that the variety of these really big circumstances is so vast. We can't find a common problem. We can't find a common enemy. We have nothing or no one to fight because there is no commonality. They're becoming a vanilla enemy. You know, we used to have ISIS, we used to have this, we used to have that, we used to have this. We had someone to fight. And maybe we could feel some feeling of unity just because we had a common enemy. But I don't know how we fight Irma, right? What are we going to do about Irma? Can't lock her up. Can't put her in prison. She's gone. She doesn't care about any of us. She's gone. There's no enemy, right? But how does something that big happen? It's because it's one more opportunity for a large number of people to perceive things from a different angle. When we have incidents that are man-made, that are very challenging, it gives people who are asleep an opportunity to point blame. All right? I'm not just talking about a particular criminal or perpetrator, but they blame whatever circumstances are behind that person or that criminal. And then they can take a whole group, throw them in with the blame, and then they're going to blame that whole bit, right? You really can't do that with a storm, can you? There really is no one to blame. And even those who believe in the idea of a punishing God, or God only gives you what you can take, or that this is orchestrated to make us do something to win, quote unquote, his favor, you kind of gonna lose that view if there's so many different things going on. How could that possibly be? And it's not as though one region or one population is affected over and over again, bless. It's all over. It's all over. It's in the desert, it's in the country, it's in the city, it's on an island, it's in a vacation resort, it's everywhere. So the answer is not the approach that we took after 9/11. And the approach we took after 9/11 was fear and hate and to combat an enemy. Well, we tried that. We still have chaos. Obviously, it didn't work. It didn't work. Because when you put fear and hate into things, it grows more fear and more hate. So now it's time to say, if we did that whole fear and hate experiment and it failed miserably, what is the new experiment? What is the new opportunity here? What is the new opportunity? And the new opportunity is just one choice. What is that one choice? I think you guys can say it in one word. Love. That's what it is. In the beginning, when we would hear this increase in that word, it sounded Pollyanna-ish. It sounded so airy-fairy, so touchy-feely. You're so out of touch. You're so, I don't know what it is, but you're not living in the real world. You're not on the ground. But as we're going through this period of accelerated enlightenment, there's no denying that love is the answer. But then the question remains, how is love the answer? How is love the answer? I can give you an answer, but now it's time to figure out what that looks like. What does that look like? You know, in 2012, there was a very big movement of having collective meditations on Earth. And people would gather around the globe. If it were 6 o'clock a.m. for someone and 6 p.m. for another, they would gather in these groups and meditate toward peace or whatever their focus was. And there was a feeling of unity and revival in that for all that participated. And that concentrated effort for people to stay in that meditative state for 10 minutes or 15 minutes or whatever it was a great step in the right direction, because people felt like they had power. They felt like there was something that they could do. What they began to see, those who were really able to commit the energy to the group meditation, was they would see energetically little ways of being validated with positive energy coming back to them. You know, doesn't mean that the Amazon regrew. It doesn't mean that everybody put down their guns and hugged each other, but they started to see little things happening to them personally. You know, like a miracle that I experienced today was that in a parking lot with 250 cars and 150 spots, I got a spot right near the door. Like, that was a miracle, you know. And why does that happen for me? Because I put a lot of love out there, you know. There is payment for all that love I put out there, and sometimes it comes in a parking space.
Get on the bandwagon.
Yeah, people. Don't love too much. I need those spots. But you see that, oh, wow, the lane opens, this happens, it rains just up until you have to get out of the car, and then it stops, and then it rains again when you get back in the car. Like, these things, it's like, well, yeah, come on, take ownership of them, because they are a positive reflection of what you're doing to increase your focus on putting love out there into the universe, okay? So it does matter. So tonight we're really going to talk about what things we can do to enjoy being in that energy space more. I don't know exactly all of the things that your guides want to say tonight, but I do feel like they're in this like urgency that I've been feeling. I feel like the guides no longer want to tell you what enlightenment is, because we've been doing that for a lot of years. Been telling you what enlightenment is for years and years and years, and giving you strategies how to get there. I've given you 9 million strategies how to get there. I feel like now it's time to step up to what you know, to step up to what is possible, and to be it, and stop postponing being what you know to be true, okay? Because anyone that has enough knowledge to be able to have an intelligent conversation with me about what enlightenment is, and I know everyone in this room could do it. If you have that capability to tell me in 1 minute what enlightenment is, and it doesn't have to be anything grand or perfect or the best way that it was ever stated, but you know the essence of it, you got it, you know it, you could tell me, you could tell me. If you can do that, then you are already it. It's already in you. You already know it. It's not something outside of you anymore. It's already in you. If you can have that conversation with me, it's already in you. So you don't have to reach any level of perfection. You don't have to be at the highest end of the bar of what a spiritually enlightened person looks like, feels like, acts like, is. That's not the point. But the point is, you can step into what you already know and stop resisting it. Stop fighting it. Stop thinking you're not enough to be it or do it. Stop thinking that you have to shed another piece of baggage from your own childhood in order to live in that loving state that comes back and gives you so many rewards. You don't have to. There's nothing else you have to do. There's nothing else you have to do except to be it. And the reason I feel this increasing urgency to tell people to be it now, instead of seeing that it's tomorrow or 10 years from now or after this happens or after that happens, is because with the fury of what is happening outside of us, if you accept that you are at a state of enlightenment, wherever you are in that spectrum, it doesn't even matter. But if you accept that you are awake, you get a ticket out of the big stuff that's happening, because you become a receiver for the people that are getting their first moment of waking up. And by design, that's what's going on. There are going to be those who are having their first wake-up moment, and they need someone to tell them what's happening. You don't go around, you don't go stand on a podium and tell them, you know, let me tell you about Irma and why it's happened, you fools, you asleep idiots. I mean, you don't do that, but you do have people say little things like, I don't know why that happened, or why is this happening, or my poor cousin, or my this, or my that, and they tell you their tales, and you can sense real confusion in them. Like, I used to be able to figure this mess out before, and now I can't. And when they express that to you, it's because the process of magnetic energy is putting them in their very first wake-up moment with you, who knows how to provide a sentence of comfort, who knows how to provide a different angle, a different perspective. You are the one. You are the one. So do you have to be the one that washes away with the torrential downpours in the river and someone finds you? No, you don't have to be that one. You're the one at the bottom of the river helping people come out of the river and saying, it's okay, everything is going to be okay. Everything is going to be okay. And so that's where, again, like I said, I don't like the word urgency because it's not an empowering word. And I wish I had a synonym for it. I have a pretty good command of the English language. I don't have a synonym for that damn word that I like. So we're going to keep using the word urgency. So, but the idea of it is to spark or ignite you into being what you know you are. Being what you know you are. That's all we're asking. That's all we're asking. We're not asking you to be what you can be, because that's really hard. You know, anyone's going to set the bar for themselves much higher than imaginable if I tell you to be what you can be. Be what you already are. You know what you already are. You know what you're capable of. Be that. You can continue to grow. You can continue to set the bar wherever you want it. But right now, be this. Be an enlightened being, which means that you know that the only thing that matters is love, and the only answer is love. Okay? All right. Any questions or thoughts yet? No? We're all good? No one wants to talk. No one's going to talk over me and your guys. Yeah.
I just quickly want to just give you an example of what happened to me yesterday. I was watching the sunset, and I was taking pictures, and I didn't see anything that stood out until later on when I was going through the pictures, and I saw a sun and a cross. And I had asked, it's very clear. I mean, I had asked earlier when I was walking, God, if there's like a special seashell, or if there's something, you know, to me that's God. It could be any name, any universe, any all-encompassing love. And I didn't get the seashell, which I don't always, even though I ask all the time. But when I saw that picture, I said, not only did you give me that beauty, that painting, but you
had to see it on a, yes.
He signed it.
Yeah, and you had to capture it on a picture in order to be able to even witness it.
It was just amazing. I just wanted to share that.
Yes, yes, yes. And you know, with that story, that might not be the symbol or the sign for everyone,
Right.
but what matters when the universe is communicating with us is that they can connect with you personally in a way that you can hear them and not have to try to put a square in a round peg. And that the universe does that brilliantly. They communicate with you on the level of how you receive their information. Otherwise, it's not relevant. It's not relevant. That's a good story. Really good story. All right, so let's talk about this. There are some things that we can do in our everyday experiences. Most of us live with people, or we talk to people, or we shop where people shop, or we work with people. Most of us have some interaction with people, right? On some level, people are there. People are there. Make a commitment to yourself. I have shared this before, that I made this commitment. And I can remember the day I made this commitment. But make this commitment to yourself, and make this commitment today. The commitment I made when I was going through those 2 intensive, agonizing, and ecstatic years of learning how to talk to guides and removing my masks and layers, there were a lot of profound changes in my perceptions of everything. And my whole entire life changed. One commitment that I made was, from this moment forward, I'm going to make my goal to leave every person I meet feeling at least as good as they felt when I met them. And if not, better. And that's it. And I don't interview every person I communicate with, so I don't know how I'm doing. But I think I'm doing pretty good. I think I'm doing pretty good. I think there are people that feel pretty neutral after they meet me. But for the most part, I think after interacting with me, and I'm talking, even if I have 20 interactions with a person in a week, everyone counts as an interaction. I think after interacting with me, I think most people feel at least as good, if not better. For the most part, and I'd probably say the vast majority of interactions I have, that's how people will feel. I'm okay with you feeling exactly the same, because at least I haven't made your life any worse, right? Bless you. But man, if I could up it, that would be pretty cool. That would be really cool. And because that's been a 10-year commitment now, you know, I kind of feel a little bit bad for my kids, and I have to at some point pay for their therapy. They've had to see me being kind like all the time. One of my daughters was at one of those ages, let's say, 15, right? And we left a store, and she just said, "I don't understand, Mom. Why do you have to talk to everybody?" And I wasn't going to sit there and tell her, "Oh, well, let's talk about spirituality. Let's talk about the process of enlightenment. Let's talk about interacting with people. Let's talk about why are we acting like we're strangers with everybody on this earth where we all have a heartbeat and we all want to be valued and appreciated." I don't want to go into that with her. But I said, you have to remember, I was quiet for 35 years, so I'm going to make up for it, and I'm sorry if you're with me when I do it. And that was my answer to her, so she would just kind of have to accept that that's the way it's going to be, even though that wasn't exactly the truthful answer. I mean, I was quiet for 35 years, but, and I'm not going to be for the next 35. Oh, that makes me 35. The new math. The new math. I like that. Okay. Yeah, I like that. All right, that goes in the books. But I know now that she's got 10 more years on her, that she appreciates it, and I watch her in the world as an adult, and she's pretty much the same way. She is very kind, not sappy, annoying, needy. She's kind. She's just kind to people, even if she's in a crummy mood. And I think that that's pretty cool, because I never heard her make that commitment. And she doesn't really have the personality that you would think she would be like that either. Like I didn't know she was going to turn out like that. So that didn't sound nice. Can we retract that statement? Just go back and I just crossed that off, Sharpie, black Sharpie that. But so if at a bare minimum I change one person's place in the world, then that's a big deal, because she's going to come into interaction with a heck of a lot of people over her lifetime, right? So one very simple thing you can do is just that. We all have moods. We all have times when we're sick, times when we're tired, times when something horrible happened, times when 7 horrible things happened in a row. We all have this. It happens. You can have a bad day, you can have a bad month, you can have a bad year. But if any of that is true for you, does that give you the right to be unkind to any other person? Does it? It really doesn't. You know, suck it up.
It's not their fault.
It's not their fault. If it is their fault, that's something different to address. You know, you have ownership in that being their fault. So in some regard, it's still not their fault, is it? Right? So you just, there's really no need for it. I might, on a rare occasion, say something like, you know what, I'm not really feeling my best, so just let me lay low. I might do that, but at least I am not going to be short with someone in my family. I'm not going to blame them for the way I feel. I'm not going to hold them accountable for my happiness, because I let them off the hook by saying, this is on me. I'm not having a great day. And then I'm fine. And I'm not later going to say, I told you to leave me alone. I'm not having a great day. I'm not even going to put that on them. I'm going to later on, if I need to, say, remember, I told you, I don't know why, I can't explain it, and maybe there's no explanation. This is really not my best day, so I'm just going to lay low. All right? It's okay to do that. It's okay to do that. You know, it's okay to even be quiet, right? Maybe you're not the friendliest when you're checking out. And maybe that person could have used a pick-me-up from you that day. And maybe you are having a pretty crummy day. Or maybe you're judging that they're too slow or too sloppy or too something. So just be quiet then, because your quietness will at least leave them in the state of where they were before they met you. If you start to speak and grumble, you're not really going to leave them better than they felt when they met you, right? One of the, I love Long Island and I love New York, but the more I travel, the more I do recognize that there is a little bit of feeling of you're not supposed to look at each other, you're not supposed to interact with each other, you're not supposed to touch each other, and I go other places in the country or in the world, and I don't have that same sense. I don't have that same sense of us having distance or some kind of invisible circle around us. And just because we have it here and it's becoming a thing, it really doesn't mean you have to buy into it. Because you don't have to buy into it. If you choose to be friendly, if you choose to smile at someone on the city streets, heaven forbid, it's okay. You're allowed to do that. You know, if you're really, really brazen and the total stranger, you think they need a hug, it's okay. Ask first, please. But it's okay. It's okay. I don't want to see anyone get arrested because of that. It's okay. It's okay to do things that other people are not doing. You don't have to be that person. So you can actually even amp up that commitment of being one that is adding a little bit of joy into other people's worlds. You know, talk to a stranger and look in their eyes. You know, give someone a genuine, heartfelt compliment. You know, point out if someone was just mean to them, oh, you didn't deserve that, whatever, just something. Undo the energy of what someone else just did to them. That's such a, this whole thing is such a tiny thing to do. It's really a very, very, very tiny thing to do, isn't it? It's tiny. It's tiny. And I have to tell you that life gets so much happier when you do it. It gets so much happier. Because there's never a day when I put my head on the pillow at the end of the night and I have to second guess how I treated the gas station attendant, or how I was with the customer service rep, or how I treated my daughter or my son or my sister. I don't ever have to second guess what my participation in that conversation was, because I always am doing a pretty good job, and I'm always at least intending to do a pretty good job. With that commitment, it doesn't mean that you become a doormat either, because none of us are so low for any second in our life that we should let somebody wipe their feet off on us, ever. And so don't get the two confused, because kind people do not necessarily become doormats. People who don't find their voice they don't express their feelings. People who don't set boundaries, even with kindness, they might become a doormat. Those who don't necessarily feel enough worth to respect their space or how people come into that space and interact with them, they might become doormats. But there are unkind people that become doormats too. It has more to do with your perception of yourself and your rights to make choices and your right to communicate with others what those choices are. When my kids were little, I would say batch 1 and batch 2 because there's an age gap, even though they're from the same batch. Batch 1 and batch 2. Between batch 1 and batch 2, there was this huge thing about everybody's talking about stranger danger, teaching the kids about sexual offenders that are registered in the neighborhood, and watch out for the unmarked van if a car doesn't have windows. I mean, it was like, oh my gosh, stop, you know? And at that time, some people would ask me, well, how do you deal with it? Because the parents were having real fear. Because if it's a topic constantly, they think there's someone lurking on every corner ready to, you know, hurt their kid, right? You start to get that paranoid perception. So my approach was, number one, I raised my kids to really love themselves, because self-love is the greatest crime deterrent. Self-love is the greatest crime deterrent. The second thing is that I told my kids something very, very simple. You have the right to let people into your space however you want. If you don't want them in your space that way, tell them to get out. And I didn't start going into all this scary detail about it either. I just made it very clear, and I used examples of them among their siblings at first so they could just see it. You know, poke, 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 right? Hey, did you say that that's off limits? State it. You have the right to state, I don't like you poking me and I don't want you to do it anymore. You got to state it. Use your voice. And the more you are clear and consistent about what you let in, other people will honor that, okay? Of course, siblings are going to push it and push it and push it and push it, but hopefully the rest of the world won't, okay? Hopefully your boss won't. So it's a matter of saying that we can all enjoy feeling safe in the world when we are loving ourselves and defining in conversation and in our actions what we permit in. And that means, I might be talking about a touch here, but it has a lot to do with how people treat us verbally, with or without respect, with or without consideration, with or without kindness. The same definition that we can use if someone's going to constantly touch our arm, we can use that same premise to define how we let people in our space, verbally, interaction-wise, action-wise. It's up to you to decide. And don't make excuses for anybody else, because you're participating in it if you allow it. Yes?
And at the same time, you don't have to make them feel less than. You can just state what you have to say, and then that part, like you said before, is always left out.
Yes. I feel as though there are going to be some people that don't shift, because there are just some people that have to exceed your boundaries, because that's the nature of how they get to work out their own personal stuff, is just to feel visible. So stepping over your boundaries makes them feel important enough to be reprimanded or yelled at or whatever. So there are going to be some people that just keep sticking with it regardless of how well you define what you want in your space. But I say you try 1, 2, 3, 4 times. Be consistent with it. Be very consistent. Never let it slide. And if you're consistent with it and there's no shift, then the next best step is to get out of your space of fear and move on. Move on. Get out of their space since they're not getting out of yours. Okay? And it is doable. It's very, 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 very doable. I have coached people with their parents. And it's interesting. In the beginning, the first time a grown man or woman has to tell their mom or dad, I don't like the way you just spoke to me, it's a very, very, very scary proposition for some people, because they think that the dynamic between the two of them is that they have to take everything that their parent does, because they're the kid and the parent is the parent, and they hold all the strings, whatever they imagine that string is. What, they're not going to love me? They're going to love my brother more? They're not going to give me their inheritance? That's usually what it comes down to when we're this age, right? But they think that the parent has all the power. So they think they don't have the right to define what they will and will not let in their space and in their life. But you do have the right, but you have to let go of whatever fear is anchoring you into any kind of abusive situation. Figure out what the fear is. Because inevitably, we have great imaginations about what we need in the future, our parents' inheritance. But if you attach decades of limiting your own choices and your own freedom based on what you believe the outcome will be, the universe has a way of saying, you're here to grow as a soul. You're not here to stay in a state of complacency. So the universe will have a way of taking that one thing away that you were riding on for 30 years. It's bizarre, isn't it? Because that's not what life is about. You can perceive a certain level of financial wealth or a ton of financial wealth when you're 90. Nothing wrong with perceiving that and imagining it and feeling it and being it. But as soon as you attach it to the source of one of your parents when they die, they own you. They own everything about you. Everything. They own whether or not you are having fun, what kind of job you have, what kind of car you drive. In some sense, they own you. You just gave up your life to them. And I guarantee they are going to live until they're 114. And by that point, you don't even need their damn money. Because those are the ones that live forever. They do, I swear it. So what good did it do you? You gave up your whole life waiting for that money. And there they are, 114. You know, you're like having more hospital visits than they are. It doesn't work. It doesn't work. So what you do instead is you replace what you have anchored to be the reason you're keeping the abuse in your life. You replace that anchor. You replace it with a different version of your future. And that's what you have to do. Let go of that resistance of the attachment, the need, being this is the only way I'm going to define my life. All right? I've often it's been popping in my head lately, and I'm not going to say it's precognitive, not by any means, not to create fear, but it's been popping in my head lately that we can't survive as we know it without the internet anymore. And I know that sounds like that was a big statement, but we can't. We cannot. And there's a reason. It's because we function in a paperless society, and everything that we believe about ourselves and our collected identity of what we do, how we communicate, how we bank, what our assets are, everything goes through the internet now. All right? So without the internet, we can't survive as we do now, right? So if we were to take away the internet today, and suppose we took away electricity, so we don't even have databases of all of the information in the world about you, then what happens? Then all of a sudden, everything you thought mattered shifts. Everything shifts. Take away power, take away electricity, and we're all equal again, aren't we? We're all equal. And on every level, we're equal again. Then it's up to every man, woman, child, person to figure out life on their own with who they are, what they are, how they perceive reality. Because all the records of anything that you own, they're gone. There's no way for you to prove your own ownership of anything, or what you owe, or what your debt is, or what you have coming to you. We can't even do business, one day of business, without electricity, right? Even dairy farmers. So we're not talking just banking here. But when you think about it in terms of even if we lost power for a week, how leveling that could be. And now suppose everything is level. Would you change your priorities of what you think is so important? You might.
Isn't that being tested right now in Puerto Rico?
I was actually going to get to that, but it is to a large extent. It is to a large extent. It is to a large extent. It is.
And never have electricity again?
Yeah.
I would leave.
Where you going, Bill?
I'd go back where I came from.
Where's that, your mother's wall?
No.
Exit here.
I would leave. I'd find a different planet.
Yeah. I don't want to be fatalistic here, but imagine we didn't have electricity again. Boy, is everybody equal, right? Boy, is everybody equal again. I know I'm powerful, Bill, but I really can't take electricity away from everybody
We have that solar
forever.
power thing down.
Don't worry. Don't worry. You might want to go out and buy a windmill when you go home tonight, but
We have generators.
no need to worry. But the point is that we're building this whole imaginary world for ourselves, our identity on these things that if one big shift happens, it has no relevancy anymore. So instead of building it on this imaginary bit, build it on the content of your life, of the content of your joy, your interactions with people, who you are as a being, how much you love yourself, what makes you happy. You know, build your being, build your identity on that, not on some imaginary thing that you have to do or be or amass or get or hold on to. So you can make your decisions more freely on a day-to-day basis. And that's part of about, like I said, being kind doesn't mean you're a doormat. But all of this is about the conversation of you can interact with people in a really kind way. You can leave people feeling better than before they interacted with you, and at a minimum, as good. And in the exception box, those that don't shift, the nicest and kindest thing you could do for them, and obviously for yourself, is to leave them. That's the very, very, very kindest thing that you can do for them and for you. Because as the universe knocks on your door and gives you a challenge, you open the door and you're like, all right, you're here anyway, let's sort this thing out. And then you kind of like, all right, what are you trying to teach me? How can I grow? How can I see this differently? What do I need? What did I forget? You can have a conversation after the door knock is opened. But if you're dealing with someone who's getting knock on the door, knock on the door, knock on the door, and the knocks are getting louder and louder and louder and louder and louder, and they're never opening the door, then you leaving could be the right knock on the door. Couldn't it? Interesting to think about it that way. You know? It could be the one. And in this really short life that we're here, in the scheme of our eternal journey, this little blip, how much they will believe they suffer because you left, that is a grain of sand in comparison to the awesome expansion of their soul that they could have because you left. More than likely they're not going to do it, but anyway, at least you gave them the chance. You gave them the chance. You gave them the chance, right? That's what you can give them. You can give them the chance. But you know what I have seen? One example was a client that her guides through me was really able to help her amazingly distance from her mother. When I sensed during coaching sessions the effect that her mother had on her, I knew that that was going to be an area that we were going to go to rather quickly, because all of the other shifts and changes and positive things that she could do were completely unsown as soon as she interacted with her mother again. So it was really important that we focus on that first. And it was a little bit of a struggle. And we put together a plan of, first you have to decide that person, what is the most important to them? What do they value the most? All right? You have to treat them like they're 6. That's what the bottom line comes from. What do they value most? And then when you have a conversation with integrity with them about defining what you will and will not take in your life, when you have that conversation with them, give them one chance to try a new version of it, which most likely they won't do. Give them maybe even half another chance. But then step up and say, you don't have to define it like this, I'm just going to tell you to make it clear. Here's the consequence if you don't accept my guideline. Okay? I've told it to you once. I told it to you twice. Third strike, here's the consequence if you don't honor my guideline. And in this case, it's good to use an illustration. In this case, it was, she wrote out a list. What does her mother value the most? Her mother values Sunday dinners at her house and daily phone calls. Okay, those are the 2 things that she values. So after the 3rd attempt, and I think she gave her a lot more than 3 attempts after the conversation, the scary, terrifying conversation. After the conversation, which is delivered very, very kindly and maturely, you're grown adults. After the conversation, when there was no shift, after many times, she finally said, Mom, I've reminded you quite a few times now that I've made a decision that for my peace, I have to have people that are within my circle that are, kind to me. And the things that you just said, they're out of that limit again. So I think it's better for me if I don't see you next Sunday. And you make the link. You have to make the link. You can't just find an excuse not to be there Sunday and expect that's going to do the job, because it won't. All right? But if you make the link, I think I'm going to have to just skip Sunday because I need a little time. And that link is made, then you make the link over and over and over and over again, even if you stay away for 12 Sundays. Okay? And if that's still not working, then you link the phone calls too. I mean, you just keep adding in the things that they value until there's nothing else for you to take away if they're mistreating you. Because when you take away the last thing that they value in your interaction with them, you're free. You don't have them in your space at all anymore, because little by little you weaned yourself away from them, right? But they're very clear that it's about them. They're very clear. You put the ownership on them. So they can't call you up and say, you didn't come 2 Sundays in a row, why didn't you come? You're a terrible daughter, you're the worst daughter I ever had. I know I should have given you back when you were born. They can't say that because you said, well, that's actually not true. You do know why I haven't been there 2 Sundays in a row? And then you disconnect from the conversation and keep putting it right back. So this example that I'm using, because it's so recent, I got to tell you, it took 6 to 9 months probably, and a lot of agony for my client, but ultimately the mom caught on. She really caught on, to the point that one day she was with her and she actually said to my client, she said, I think what I just said was really mean and I'm sorry. Like, why, it's like an alien that took over her body. But that thought could not have been achieved unless she had been compelled to be in a space that was unfamiliar, right? So for 6 months, her Sundays were being taken away. Her phone calls were truncated or not at all. And it helped to open up a brand new, what do you do? Your eyes dart back. What do I do? What do I do? I need a solution. I don't have what I want. I don't have what I want. How do I get it? How do I get it? Right? And boom, you hit it. I think I'm going to be nice to her. I think I'm going to be nice to her. I might get what I want then. And that's the only way the light can possibly go on, is you have to compel them to force themselves into a different perception. That's it. That's the only way to get it done. And if all else fails, I'll help you deal with your guilt. But it's okay for them to be without you in their lives. And you know what? They're going to die. And it's okay if you have chosen to not be with them and they die in the middle of you not being with them. Do you follow me? Because you gave them the gift of a lifetime by choosing not to be with them. If they decide to take that gift and die, that's their choice. On some level, that's their choice. So you got to disconnect from the guilt. You're not responsible for anyone else's happiness in this world except your own. And when you're happy, everyone around you has a better chance to be happy. Right?
Yes.
The answer is yes! Yes! All right. Before we get into our next suggestion, this suggestion was a big one. Let's take a break, get a cup of coffee, mingle, chat, be kind to each other, unless someone's unkind to you first. And we'll come back in 10 minutes. All right, did everybody have above the line interactions with each other during the break? So we all succeeded our commitment so far. We were able to do it successfully for 15 minutes. All right, excellent, excellent, well done. After that, you can continue to go. All right, the next topic, the first is, of course, make a commitment to yourself to leave people as good or better having interacted with them. And of course, the exemption is those who never do that to you. Try to bring them up to speed, and if you can, we talked about strategies to do so. The next topic is, here's as I see it. When I return to the energy realm and I hang out where we are all residing with our full consciousness, a lot of my information comes from those experiences from being there. Of course, I channel 24/7 these days. I never really disconnect from the source of where I get my information from. But those visits still give me a unique angle, and they can teach me things or help me remember things that are a little bit less easy to remember in other ways. We can seem to remember things about being in the physical, about our place in the physical world. But some of those more esoteric topics that come from our eternal nature, what the meaning of life is, what we're all doing here, how everything comes together, and so on, I find I'm able to get a broader perspective when my consciousness returns home to where we all are residing. We're all there now. This is just a piece of yourself, okay? Your higher self is managing this piece and hopefully doing a really good job with it. Well, when I return home, one of the things that I become clear on is that I know it's said commonly that we are all one, but that doesn't really mean much to a lot of people. So it sounds, again, it sounds maybe a little airy-fairy, or it sounds maybe even a little preachy, like do unto others as you would have them do unto you. It sounds a little bit more of a command than a comprehension of energy. So in the energy realm, when my consciousness is in the energy realm, I actually get it in a way that might be eluding us here. But what we are one means is that we are truly of the same source. So therefore, we are the same source. Everything in all existence is the same because we are the same source, okay? That's how we are all one. Now, as far as levels of consciousness, our souls, which are eternal, we have consciousness that projects to create the physical manifestation of this realm. So as our consciousness is being projected into this physical experiment, this physical lab, part of what comes along with that consciousness projection is the lab itself, the stage on which we are existing and allowing our souls to make discoveries. It's part of this same source because we've projected it. Through consciousness, we've projected all matter. All experiences in the physical are projections of consciousness. So that means, let's make a leap here and take it out of maybe thinking it sounds a little airy-fairy. But it means you are the planet, and the planet is you. You are a leaf, and a leaf is you. You are a dog, and a dog is you. You are this table, and the table is you. Because all matter in the physical realm is here to help the souls develop higher levels of consciousness and getting closer to the vibration of love. So since we as souls projected all matter so we could have this physical lab to experiment, then therefore you are everything that has been projected.
What?
If we had no humans on Earth ever, there would be no Earth to be a lab for the human experience. Because the projection of the Earth as physical matter in the creation of this realm was projected by consciousness, so we could have this physical experience in which to try out different ways of developing the soul. Does everyone follow me? So it's just one big thought. This is one big thought. Therefore, everything contained within that thought is one. So you are everything in existence, and everything in existence is you. So the reason I don't care if you can't wrap your head around that. My visits to the energy realm were the only way I really got to wrap my head around that. But you know it as a thought now. And I think you can accept it with a little bit of faith, right? And so let's go from the faith step on. What does that mean? What does that mean? If we're asking right now that you're going to know what you know instead of pretending that you don't know what you already know, what does knowing that mean you can use as a tool for being what it is that you know instead of pretending that you're not? And what it means is another very, 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 very simple step. It's about your relationship with the earth. That's what it's about. I'm not nailing myself to trees. I'm not using all of my money and taking it out of the bank to save a bird. I'm not fanatical about anything in particular, but I do every single thing that I do to the best of my ability to honor all of nature. To the very best of my ability, I honor all of nature. And just the same way I can't affect every human plight, I can't fix everything that's broken here on this earth, I can't do that for the planet either. I can't do that for the animal kingdom either. I can't do that for matters of global warming, pollution, any particular species that's in peril. I can't. I'm just one person. But what I can do, which is incredibly powerful, is that everything that comes into contact with me gets honored. Every single thing that gets in contact with me is honored. Everything is honored, okay? And again, I'm not a fanatic by any means, and part of the things that I do that may seem a little odd, they've developed slowly as my feeling of honor grows. And as I realize I could do a little bit more than I did last week in living in honor. As I have those realizations that it's actually not so hard, then I do a little bit more. So my latest oddity, I can say that about me. There's so many to choose from. This is just the most recent one. My latest oddity is that I get along with almost everything, everywhere, always, but I don't get along with poison ivy. We've just agreed to not be friends, okay? It's just an agreement, okay? It has to do with the fact that my level of awareness is so low that I can't connect on an energetic level with the poison ivy to stop biting me and making me look like a leper. My consciousness is not high enough to get that done. Therefore, we've agreed to disagree and we just are not partners. So traditionally, I had a spray, and that spray was the way I voiced my concern with this partner who's always been difficult in my life. And that took care of the problem. My enemy, my rival, would not bother me anymore after the spray. But then his friend would come by and say, "Where's my friend?" And I'd be like, "Hey, we talked about this." And that would be the end of that one. And now I said, there's got to be a better way, because I'm thinking to myself, I have very little ones that want to come visit me anymore because they know that they're not welcome at my home. But they still come. They taunt me, they tease me, they know I love to be outside. So they still come. But even if it's just a little fellow, I'm like, if I spray those leaves, and then it rains, and then it goes into the soil, and then there was an earthworm under there, and then there was a bug I don't want to identify, and then there was a root of another plant. All of a sudden I'm like, oh God, this is really serious stuff, you know? I'm not doing broad applications of fertilizers, I'm not spraying my trees for inchworms, but all of a sudden I'm like, not loving this. Not really loving this, because this I have control over. This is one way I can choose to honor or not honor my planet, correct?
Right.
I've already, in my agreement with the poison ivy, I've already agreed with the poison ivy not to let it live there. So we have to figure out a way that we can both honor this agreement without me using the spray. So I watched a YouTube video. What else do you do under these circumstances? You know what? The internet still exists, and electricity was available to me. So I found like the coolest video, and the guy on this video like taught me where to go from here. So I take 2 hefty bags and I duct tape them around my arms. And I cover myself with clothing, and I tie my hair back, and then I go in, and I have another hefty bag, right? And I have just one pair of gloves. Actually, they're usually made of natural fibers, because I don't want to use plastic in this massive experiment. I care about the gloves, but I don't care about the bags. And then I go and I invite my friends to live in the bag instead of live in the soil. I might not necessarily be honoring that particular plant, but they get used to the bag somehow, and someone carts them away and they go find friends wherever their new home is, so it's all really, really, really good. But in the meantime, I didn't spray anything that's going into the soil.
Try white vinegar.
Oh, now she tells me.
I got a
Straight
shot
white
years
vinegar.
ago.
Did you drive by my house when I was dressed like that at one point, and you're just suggesting it for the beautification of the
I pull it out all the
neighborhood?
time and I don't even realize it's poison ivy.
And now I have a new solution then, Margaret.
Wait, Margaret.
Yeah, Margaret.
Wait, Margaret.
Now, you know, it's so darn easy to just take the spray out. It really, really is just so simple, because, man, that stuff works. It really works. But once you make this choice, like how you want to live and how you want to share the space with your planet, once you make that choice, it's almost impossible to go back. And again, it's actually I'm not obsessive, I'm not compulsive. I still don't believe that I need to let the poison ivy live instead of me, you know, but it feels really good to have found such an extraordinary natural solution to what I used to think was the biggest problem of my life. And every time you're interacting with something, it's okay to think about it in those terms. Now, the other part is, it doesn't mean that nothing can be touched either. There are going to be people that say you can never cut down a tree. There are whole communities that you have to get a permit to just take one tree down off your property, because those governmental officials are the god of the town, and they'll decide for you what you can do with your property. You know, one time I saw this thing. It said, I have to look that up again, but there was like 80% or 70% of the, it might even be more than that, 70, 80, maybe even 90% of the Earth's oxygen come from forests, like way up in the, you help me, where are they? Where are those forests? I feel like you know. Who knows?
South America.
No, they're
No,
rainforests.
it's
No,
like
it's like this
Iceland
tiny little.
or
It's
something.
like
something that you
Greenland, like
wouldn't-
something
yeah,
like you got to be
Greenland or
kidding
Iceland or
me.
something like that you wouldn't
There's this
expect.
place where there are these trees that provide 80, 90, some kind of
Yeah.
ridiculous
Is
amount
that the
of percentage.
rainforest one? In
No, it's
it's
like-
all the way up
it's-
north
yeah,
in
it's
a
near the
very, very
Arctic.
cold
Yeah,
place.
something,
I was
yeah.
so surprised to read that. And then I realized we're a little nutty about what we think honoring the planet means sometimes. Of course, if there's a species in peril, or, cutting down all trees locally so there's no natural wilderness for our squirrels and our, birds and all that doesn't make a lot of sense. But it doesn't mean to be obsessive either. It means to be sensible and reasonable and do what it is that you can do. That's what it means. And sometimes living in honor with your planet means that the planet will understand that if you like sunshine or you don't like that particular kind of tree, there's nothing dishonoring about living within that space and removing the trees. Do you follow me? It's look at what the big picture is. Look at what the big picture is. And so as I am the one that captures the spiders and put them outside, and I do all this, and I actually feel kind of pretty good about it. I am the go-to person in my house. I don't care what the thing is. I'm the one that is brought in to get it out of the house alive. I actually have this little quandary when I'm letting these things free in the winter. It feels like odd, I just let a ladybug out in the snow. I'm like, I don't know the solution to that. Maybe I have to find a bug aquarium for the winter and then bring the bug aquarium outside and
Do you
set.
have any house plants?
I do.
Keep the ladybugs. They eat amphibs.
Oh,
They
now
get
she
in-
tells me.
keep them in the
You
house.
have all my solutions,
I'm gonna
Margaret.
hire a consultant to come over for a day.
Wow.
I'll sort out the good bugs and the bad bugs.
I think I'm going to have like a little guest column in my monthly newsletter, Honoring the Planet by Margaret. Right?
Yeah.
Not such a bad idea. Not such a bad idea. But the real big point here is when you think in terms of the word honor, it really just feels so good. It's not ridiculous. It's not obsessive. It's not over any exaggerated, compulsive need. It's just live in honor. And when you're doing so, it's important to remember that you really are honoring yourself when you do this, because we are one with everything in existence from the beginning of time in physical manifestation. So there's a certain honor in honoring yourself when you do that too. Every time you feel an experience of honor for a thing or a person or a plant or an animal, you are actually really honoring yourself as well. And the nice thing about it is that this has nothing to do with morality or ethics or right or wrong. But at the end of the day, you actually feel really good about yourself. You feel good. I know people make fun of me, and that's okay too. But at least I give them something funny to focus on to make fun of, than something that you shouldn't be making fun of because that's not funny. So I'm helping there as well. Did everybody get that? Did everybody get that? Can you read that last line back, please? Not the one about my daughter, but the other line.
You didn't say which daughter.
That's a good point. I didn't say which daughter.
Yeah.
Thank you. Very good point. She'll know though.
Yeah.
I think I just added to it. So that's another consideration. It's a lot to ask in one night that you leave here, and now you're going to try to have your interactions with other people so that you're leaving them as good or better, and you're also living in a state of honor. And I know it's a lot to ask in one night, but you are going to feel so much better, and there are accidental byproducts of enlightenment that happen when you do those two things. These things come from behind and they land on your shoulder, and these things just keep happening and popping, and you don't even know why, because you didn't seek it. It wasn't as though you were seeking the changes, the positive changes that come in, just by those two simple commitments to the best of your ability. Not obsessively, but to the best of your ability. What's really interesting is that our planet is far more forgiving than anyone will ever give it credit for. So we can mess up, and I think collectively we've done a really, really good job of that. And that when you stop doing it with a little bit of knowingness and intention, and it's only a little bit accidental, the earth is like, hey, guys, you know, we all make mistakes. And they just breathe a little differently, and the earth just shifts a little bit here and there to accommodate your mistake. And if it's not a form of abuse, they just grow right around it, and they thrive right around it, and they self-clean, and they self-repair. That's the structure, because we don't know everything, and we're going to make mistakes, and we're going to make a mess of it. But if we're doing so always with a good intention, then the mistakes that we're making, the earth is going to absorb them and repair and recover, self-repair and self-recover from it, because that's what the earth does. It is an extension of us. So if we mean no harm, it's okay, because the earth is helping us work through this infancy we're having here. Okay? So let's look at this in terms of, what does this mean? How does my life change, or how does anything change if I do this one simple thing, living in honor? Let's go to the eternal chicken and egg debate about global warming. Right? Does it exist? Does it not? Look what science has proved. Look what we know. Look at the storms. Look at this. You know, it seems to me that the scientific evidence is a little bit more hefty than those who say it's not a thing, perhaps. But the big perhaps here is that global warming is a response to our consciousness and our fears and our belief in wrongdoing. So the more we are blaming any particular group or industry or anything, the more global warming will respond to that belief and that projection, and the planet will heat up in response. So we are responsible for global warming, not necessarily because of the physical actions as much as we are because of our beliefs about our physical actions. So getting back to the idea of honor, if you're doing something in your little space that just feels like this might not be the greatest thing for the environment, then you're contributing to lots of people that are doing it, and a conversation with the planet that says, we need to reflect this back to you quickly because you understand what you're doing, but you're not taking any alternative action. You're continuing to do what you do. So it's time, it's amassing to be the time where it's important that we reflect back to you the consequence of knowingly dishonoring us.
How many chances do we have of that?
I think we've had quite a few so far. We've had quite a few so far. And I think we'll get to a tipping point where we don't have to continually have this conversation. But in the meantime, every person that believes that they have power by living in honor, we are affecting massive change because everything is connected and we are all one, right? So you might think that the little thing you're doing with those 2 daily choices, with those 2 tiny commitments that you make, you might think that they're ineffectual, but they're not. They're massive. They're massive. And when you demonstrate these little things, and we actually don't have to be preachy about any of it, but when you just keep modeling and demonstrating and modeling and demonstrating and modeling and demonstrating, it catches on because other people start to like the peacefulness of the choices that you're making. Like an example would be, I don't know where I was, but I was on a business trip recently, and I bought something for lunch, and it was one of those things that it looks like it's, you know, got a little, like 2 days worth of food in it, right? And then you peel back the cover and it has, I could feed my fish and he would still be hungry because I only have one fish. And so when I open up the package, I'm not going to get angry because really that doesn't serve anybody's purpose. But I do open the, since there are people around, I will say, I'm so disappointed in this because I try not to buy deceitful packaging because I don't really think I'm honoring my planet, right? So I just make that statement. And I'm talking only about me. I'm not talking about what anybody else is doing in front of them. I'm telling my choice, and I do feel uncomfortable with that packaging. I do. I feel uncomfortable with it. So just by making that little statement, it makes other people think, even if they don't think they're thinking. And even if they don't think today, they might think in 17 years or 17 days. Because it's just such a simple thought, right? It's just such a simple thought. I haven't punished anybody. I haven't gotten up on a soapbox. I haven't been dramatic. But I've just made a statement of choice. And when you keep modeling that kind of choice, it catches on. It catches on. I noticed it with like how much waste we have when we're putting the garbage out, and it's amazing how much less waste we have. And again, we're not fanatical in any way. I don't even pay any attention to what we consume, honestly, except that my habit is to live in honor, so there's no consumption waste to be thinking about. Like, that's where it all started from. I actually don't buy anything with ridiculous packaging. I also, not only is it an environmental thing, but on a personal note, let's say I still have a tiny little bit of the ego left, right? There's a little bit that pops in once in a while. I honestly think that the company that packages it like that, I really think that they are really disrespecting my intelligence. I really do. And I don't like companies that profit by pretending I'm not smart. That just doesn't sit well with me. So maybe that's coming from a place of ego. But I believe that companies that do commerce should honor my intelligence by doing things that honor as best they can our one collective planet, right? Again, it's not obsessive either, is it? It's not obsessive. I have the power with how I spend my dollars to not promote that. It might not make a big difference because I don't think anyone at any particular company is noticing that I haven't been buying their stuff. But if a lot of people behave in honor and then they mention it in front of others, then maybe all of us will not buy like that anymore. And then that will affect a visible change. It's like the simplest little things that we can do. The simplest little things. But one thing when I was saying, like, how do these changes come back and affect you? As I told you, these changes that I've made, they grew over time, and I actually did not intend them. My whole change started with learning how to love myself. Because that is at the core of every other choice that it is that we make, how much we love ourselves or don't. And that's very complex too, because we can really super love ourselves in one arena and then just be a total wipeout in another. But whole self-love that extends to just being a presence in every circumstance where you're feeling worthy or you feel that you are lovable or important. God forbid we should say we're important. But if you're really living like that, what happens is these honor things just become natural. They become a natural extension of self-love. It's inevitable. It's the strangest thing. It's inevitable. And that's one of the other ways that you can notice that we are all one. If it's inevitable that I live in more of a state of honor of the planet and the plants and the animals, and I never intended to do that, but I did intend to grow my self-love, and now I honor other stuff more. And we already talked about honoring anything outside of you is honoring yourself. Then isn't honoring everything a natural extension of self-love without any effort whatsoever? You don't even have to work on it. You don't even have to make it a cause. It just happens. It just happens. And even the first thing, being able to leave people at least as good after you met them, that's actually a byproduct of self-love as well. If you grow your love of self, that becomes a pretty normal thing to do. You know why? Because when you love yourself, you really don't need, I'm going to use the word need. You don't need anything from anybody, right? So no one can define your happiness if you love yourself. So why would you ever have to be mean to anyone for not giving you what you need if you don't have any needs, right? So there's no one that I need anything from. The idea of needing anything from someone is just freaky to me now, because I really don't. And I honestly don't ever want to need anyone, because that's so not fair to them. That's putting a responsibility on somebody else that they didn't necessarily sign up for it, even if they accept it. Isn't that true? Right? I don't anti-need anyone. You know, I don't have to be a one-man island, leave me the F alone, get out of my space. I can do it myself. So I'm not an anti-needer either. But I happily coexist and co-create with the people in my experiences, which feels more harmonious to me. And that's an extension of self-love. That, again, was not something I sought. It's something that happened as I grew my self-love. I did say early that I made a commitment to leave everybody at an equal state or a better state having met me. Even though that is a byproduct of self-love, and it'll happen naturally when you grow your own self-love, there was something that I got, I guess, intuitively. It wasn't like a conversation I remember having with guides. It was more like a download. But that was something I actually did with the intention of growing my self-love. So interestingly, these things, they push each other. So they grow each other. So the more you do one, the more the other grows. And the more you do that, the more the other grows. And the more you do that, the more the other grows. So the more I respect my planet, the more I grow in self-love. And the more I grow in self-love, the more I want to respect other people. And the more I respect other people, the more they respect me, and the more I grow in self-love. It's like crazy good, never-ending crazy good. And it just happens with little more effort than making the intention to love yourself more, to accept who you are in this exact second, without apology, without fear, without regret, without shame, without guilt. Because you did the best you could to get here at this second. You might as well accept where you are at this second. Doesn't mean you don't want to improve or change or whatever, grow. But you can agree that this is pretty damn good. And the stuff that I feel I have misgivings about, or the stuff where I think I'm flawed, I'm going to say by golly, because we haven't said that in a long time. And I think that we should bring that phrase back. So, by golly, we should understand that those misgivings, or where we perceive ourselves as being flawed, that they were developed in conjunction with people that separated us from our soulful self-love to begin with when we were children, okay? And then that perpetuated. As soon as a part of someone telling you that you're not enough, you're not anything enough, no matter what that not enough is, as soon as you have one moment of that, it gets compounded with every other moment of that you come across in your entire life. So if you have a misgiving, or you believe that you have a shortcoming, accept that it is because of as a consequence of what you've experienced in your life. And when you become aware of it, you can shift it, you can change it. But until the awareness begins and the shift can happen with intention, you have to accept that you're pretty damn good right now. By golly. Just had to throw that in again. I'm going home and I'm going to figure out what guide made me say that. We're going to have a chat, and it might not be a very honorable chat. so it's kind of interesting that this, like, of all the techniques that I've given in the last 10 years, these two are probably the easiest of anything because they're so doable. Amping up the honor, right? Amping it up. It's so easy, and yet your guides are saying here tonight that these two primary strategies are the way for you to get an opt-out of chaos. Global chaos will pass you by if you do those two simple things. If self-love is not enough of an incentive, I think that that's a really, really, really good incentive. A really good incentive. It's interesting to think about it. You know, it's so funny, all the changes that I've made were not narrated to me before I made them, but guides narrate them to me after they're already done, but I've already seen the consequence of the change. So I'm always figuring it all out first. And then once it works, I come and I tell you. So you guys have that leg up that I'm already going to tell you it works. Hey, that's pretty good. It just saved you 10 years. Saved you 10 years of that journey. 10 years. As you know, in general, I put everybody's name in a bag at the end of the night, and I do pick out a name and I do a reading. But I am going to ask for everyone's indulgence tonight because it is already late. If I could just offer the reading tonight to the birthday girl. I think that would be a nice, honorable thing to do.
Yes.
All right? How does that make you feel, Joan?
Like really special. Like
Next month, everyone's going to be like, it's my birthday! It's my birthday! Karen just wanted you to know in advance, I'm coming tomorrow when it happens to be my birthday. I'll be like, Randy, your birthday was in I saw it on Facebook. When was your birthday?
And I like lemon muffin. I said, and I like lemon muffin.
From Kiss My Cake.
that was
From Kiss My Cake.
I thought so.
Half birthdays count.
Delicious.
So do quarter and monthly. Bi-weekly.
Can collectively we change the past?
Oh, yes. Yes, we can.
There's a movement.
Yeah, all right, we'll do a whole seminar on that.
Yeah.
I can. Can we collectively change the past? Right, my Happy in 90 program, my online course for happiness, there is a whole module, an extensive module, and it teaches you how to change your own past, which is really fascinating to me. The module, there's 12 modules in Happy in 90, so it's I think it's the 10th module, and it goes near the end because it's so hefty, it's so hardy, it's so big. I needed to give you a lot of foundational stuff before you got to that module, all right? But it's worth getting there when you get to it. It's a big, 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 big module, life-changing module, all right? Okay, so back to... Oh, did you have something you wanted to say?
Yeah, I just wanted to share with everybody because just an experience I've had. Like passing around some pause for love cards. Take at least 2 and pass one to someone else and then see how they react. I've been so fortunate the last month that I've had the cards that where I work in some neighborhoods, years ago they might have been at-risk neighborhoods in parts of Queens. But now, random people walking down the street, I just hear, I have a card.
Good.
So, and then what I'm able to do is I'm having a conversation with somebody, give them a card, and then step back and watch how they react to it. Watch how they react to love.
Yes. A lot of people in here volunteered for the Big Give. So we've had that experience at the Big Give, right? Very, very much so we had it.
Very positive.
Very, very amazing. To try to get people to engage in a conversation with you and convince them that you don't want anything from them, not a donation, not a nod, not a signature, but just please take my gift. Take 2 of my gifts and give one to someone else that could use it. It actually is funny to see how creative you have to get with your conversation in order to get someone to accept your presence and then to give one away. But we had a blast with it. A lot of people here were there, right? We had a blast with it. We had a blast. We really had a great time. Great time. All right, I didn't talk about all this, because I didn't remember to. But, oh, look at that. Happy 90 made its way onto the board. I don't know if that's ever been up there before. Thank you. By golly. By golly. There's a whole chapter in there, archaic phrases we must bring back, because we need to.
Oh my gosh, by golly. That's what
Yeah, but we really don't need to keep it to one season. I really think that could be festive year round. Okay? I'm on a campaign to bring back the word dollop. Please use dollop in a sentence. Okay? Everyone can use a little dollop of something.
Dollop is sour.
Right? Bring back dollop. Bring back dollop.
I have nifty.
Like nifty. Love it. All right. So what's going on? Oh, if anyone's near Mount Kisco, on the 25th, I'm doing the event in Mount Kisco. But the numbers of seats are so tiny that everybody, this is my second or third time doing that, everybody has a fantastic time because of how few people we let in. All right, so if you want to make the trip up, it's not a very bad ride. It's really not. But the seats will not last.
It's an hour and 5 minutes, an hour and 10 minutes.
It's really not that bad. And snowflakes, just to give you the heads up, snowflakes is that, I know we got the other alternate meeting of snowflakes recently, but our snowflakes mean still that we're making crystal snowflakes to give to children that can't be home at the holidays, to have other children come and make them with us so that they can see what it's like to share their love through a gift for other people. So Snowflakes is going to be a big event. It'll be multiple places, multiple days. That's why I'm not putting a specific date on there, but it will definitely be around the winter solstice, just the way I've done all the Piece It Together events near the changing of the seasons. Okay? So now, Miss Joan, and I gave you time to think of your question.
I don't have a question. I just want to know what the guides want, if they have a message for me. I feel very grateful. I just feel very grateful.
All right. In general, you know that when we do this, the guides will make suggestions, not give advice, but make suggestions that might help you get to an even happier place or whatever. But in this case, your guides would like to take this moment that you granted them to just tell you something about yourself, all right? So that's what we're going to do. What they would like you to know, because sometimes we don't take a moment to have realizations of our own success or progress or even our own being. So on this magical birthday, the celebration of your being in your life, they want you to understand that you are at a beautifully high vibrational energy, and that there might not have to be anything massive in your mind about how to take that energy and do the most good with it. But in your day-to-day choices and your day-to-day interactions with people, it amasses to something great and something big just by the choices of being exactly who you are, okay? The second part, part B, is that they also want to recognize, or at least ask you to recognize, that some of the things that you have been allowing yourself to become aware of over the last decade or two, consciously, with the intention of self-improvement and more happiness, they're coming together. And they really have been coming together for maybe like the last 6 months. And so some of the things that you're feeling that are different is because you've taken those elements and you've made them a part of your being, not just something that's in your head, but something in how you are, all right? So here on your birthday is a great day to celebrate that you are doing this and that they congratulate you on being able to do that, because it's a hard thing to do. All right?
Thank you.
So happy birthday.
Good.
All right, thank you everybody for being here. Thank you for the cards, Anthony. And thank you, Victoria, for bringing your beautiful new perfume line out. Please stop by and talk to her if you get a moment. I appreciate it.